Well, blessings, everyone, and so good to see you again today. Um, we have another good show for you. This is the third episode, and going to have, again, an excellent guest for this next 30 minutes. We are going to be spending 30 minutes with Renee Rowan Basel. And Renee, welcome. How are you?
I am great. Good to be with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Sure. And, you're going to be you're going to be speaking during the upcoming conference, the third annual Women of Chaplaincy and Pastoral Care Conference. So I'm excited about that. But of course, you're going to be our worship leader, which is something I'm really excited about. And we will talk a little bit more about that later. But I just want to get started with the fact that from what I've read about you, because we don't know each other, but right. I would say it seems you grew up maybe as what they might call a church girl. Your dad was a pastor. Is that correct?
That is correct. My dad, Pat, he founded the Church of Atlanta in Atlanta, Georgia. And so I grew up, he started the church with 12 white people. Okay. And it was right downtown Atlanta. And about 5 years in, they were running about 1,000 people and still only 12 white people. So I grew up sitting on the brothers and sisters' laps, and that's how I learned how to sing. That's where I became in love with music, because we would have church pretty much all day and every night of the week back then. It was a revival center type place. So my mother, as a child, she'd tell me that she would put me under the piano, sitting in my car seat. She'd slide me under the piano and still play. And so I loved my upbringing. My godparents are all Black. And this is a funny story. My godparents came the day I was born to the hospital to see me. Mm-hmm. And so they're standing out, because that was, you had to stand out in front of the big old window back then. And so they kept holding up little Black babies to my godparents. And they kept saying, no. And finally they held me up and they're like, yes, and this is in the 60s. And so they were like, oh my goodness, this is your baby? And they're like, yeah.
Oh, wow.
We ended up in the Pittsburgh area in McKeesport, where my dad pastored the Christian Life Assembly of God there, Christian Life Church, and which eventually became Praise Assembly. So we had a very strong church there for, I think Mom and Dad were there 30 years, I think. So my teen years were growing up in Pittsburgh, with all of my Georgia family telling me I'd become a Yankee, But when I'm talking to my family, although everybody down here says I have an accent, but a lot of people say I don't have one, but my Georgia family thinks I've lost it altogether. They think I'm Yankified, but.
No, I still hear a hint of an accent, you can say, just a hint, but it's there. But I do want to just ask.
But I never got the Pittsburgh accent.
Well, I don't feel there is one, but of course that's me, because I'm used to being here.
That's right. You say yins or y'all?
I say y'all. Or now I try to sometimes say you all.
You were raised right.
Sometimes I try to clean it up and say you all, but still.
Yes. No, and I mean, I'm trying to think of some other things that are Pittsburgh-ese. Jumbo for bologna, right?
Yes.
Okay, and gum bands for rubber bands.
Right.
All right. Those are some of the things I remember, And downtown, we're going downtown.
Exactly. And funny you should mention that song, because I was just saying to someone recently, whenever was it Petula Clark that made that song Downtown, and I thought she was singing about downtown Pittsburgh. I got so excited, like, oh, she knows about downtown.
That's funny.
She probably had never been to downtown Pittsburgh, but anyway, yeah. Well, listen, I just want to ask you too, with the church upbringing, it seems like for you, you had no problems with it, or, it's not something that maybe, caused you grief, or I don't know if at some point you kind of rebelled against that, but I just wondered, were you okay with it, or were there, issues that you felt maybe you were under a microscope being, a PK or preacher's kid? Did you go through any of that?
PK, I went through that whole spiel. My brother was a lot more accepting of it, and he did rebel. I really never rebelled other than dated people my parents really didn't want me to date,
Okay, well,
and so sneak out. But the fishbowl whole thing, I hated. I felt like I was living in a fishbowl. Everybody knew what I was doing, when I was doing it, who I was doing it with. They do everything about you. So if you strayed any way, you were going to be crucified for it, or like you said, under a microscope. So she shouldn't be doing that. She shouldn't be doing that. But I always tease everybody and say I got in trouble. I was a PK, but the deacon's kids are the ones who got me in trouble.
Okay, so you weren't alone, is what you were saying.
That's right. But it being raised in the pastor's home, it did. We were Bible readers. We were taught to do devotions. We were taught to pray. We tried to have a meal at the table every night. Mama would have something on the table. Sometimes Daddy would be late. Either he had counseling or whatever from the church, but it was always very important for us to have a family meal, all of us together. And I tried to do that in bringing up my child. He's 21 now. I shouldn't say child, but it was very important for me to have dinner around the table, for us to pray together, for us to have devotions together. And my daddy to this day, if you're staying with him, or even if he comes visits me, we're going to sit down, we're going to have devotion every night together, and we're going to read the word of God. So that instilled in me something. So even though I may not have liked it during the teen years, we all go through that little spell. It ingratiated things in me, to be more of a follower of Christ. And I've got that strong and firm foundation that, they say, train up a child. I always say train up a husband, but
okay, you just made that your own thing.
I did. It's the RRB version. Oh yeah.
Oh my. But yeah, and well, what you were saying in terms of being at home, for the family meal, and even people kind of knowing what you're doing and reporting back to your parents, it may have been a part of just that generation of us, because I know I wasn't a preacher's kid, but growing up in the community where I did, which was Braddock, Pennsylvania, not far from McKeesport,
right.
I felt like everybody knew each other, and I felt like they definitely all knew my mom, because whatever I did before I got back home, she wasn't even out, but before I got back home, she would know, I heard you did this and that. I'm like, how did you know?
Because it takes a village, don't it?
Yes. Sometimes I wish it was a less nosy village.
Right? Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Mind your business, people. Mind your business.
Right. But I think, again, I think it was a part of, the generation we grew up in, and, the types of small communities that we grew up in. And they just kind of assumed like everybody's child, belonged to the neighborhood, so to speak.
Yes. And it wasn't foreign if someone else spanked you beside your parents.
Right.
Although we don't know what spankings are nowadays, but back then we did. And I got spanked by more than my mom and my dad. So.
See, I don't recall that happening, I'm glad to say, but like
Yeah.
you're saying, it wasn't something that would have been out of the ordinary.
Right.
So yeah. Well, something else I wanted to ask you too. I read that you had actually won a beauty pageant, is that correct? Where you missed?
It is.
I don't recall the title, but you were missed something.
I got into the pageant world when I was in college. And because you got scholarships, so if you won a title, you got a scholarship. So that's what got me into it. I modeled also during high school and college, so a lot of my people that modeled were also in the pageant world. So so I ran for Miss Missouri, and I was 4th runner-up to her, and then I ran for Miss Pennsylvania and with Miss Southwest Pennsylvania, and so that was all part of the Miss America pageant. But if I'd have won that, it would have taken me down a whole different path, that I think God probably kept me from. Don't get me wrong, I have great friends that I met through the pageants, but it was also a very catty world. So there was a lot of, I remember one pageant that we were in that one of the girls put Nair in one of the other girls' shampoo. And I mean, had to wear a wig, the rest of the thing, she got kicked out of the pageant. So there was that side of the pageant. And then there was this wonderful friendship side that you had, that we were just out there trying to get scholarships, So it was fun. It was a fun time. I had a blast doing it, and I've made good friends. But I'm a pageant girl, and I'm also a tomboy. So, I had the best of both worlds.
And a church girl,
And a church girl, yes. And I'm sure very judgmental people that saw me in a bathing suit.
Well, I was even thinking myself, like church girl and pageants, the bathing suit thing, like somehow that seems a little,
It was, trust me, we heard about it.
But you're saying too, by this time you were already in college when you started competing.
Yeah. And a lot of girls start younger. They do the teen pageants. They are a pageant girl, as they call them. And they live their whole life. Some of them start even littler. I think of like Jean Bonnet Ramsey, started as a little itty bitty girl. So they go all the way through teen and then college. And we call them pageant girls. That's their life.
Yes.
But mine, it was just really for fun and to get some scholarship money.
Right. Now, I saw too where one of the things that really struck me is you had been selected as a backup singer for Larnell Harris. Now, he's a gospel singer that we don't hear much about now, but back in the day, so to speak, was it maybe the 1980s that he became? It was
the 80s.
Okay.
I started with a group called the Spurlows because I tried out for Truth. I don't know if you remember the group Truth or not, but they were the big, it was like 12 of them, and they had a brass band and all this kind of stuff, and they traveled. And so I tried out with them, and they weren't needing an alto at the time. So their producer suggested I go with the Spurlows. So I went with the Spurlows, and that opened the door for me to go with Larnell, because Thurlow Spur, who ran us, was also Larnell's manager. So Larnell was looking to start a backup group and to travel with him everywhere and do, live stuff instead of just with tracks. And so I was hired by him. That was a most wonderful time. He taught us so much about stage presence, about that you need to, and you must warm up. I mean, even at the stage he was in, one of the great tenors of our time, still took voice lessons, every week. And I'm like, you don't need to take voice lessons. He goes, oh, yes, you do. And, he would make us 30 minutes before a concert. We'd have to do warm-ups and do them with him. And but he was a godly man. He wanted to be in his church on Sunday morning. So we never did a Sunday morning concert anywhere. We would do a lot of Friday nights so he could be back in his bed Saturday so that he could be at church on Sunday morning. Now we did quite a few Sunday evening concerts because then he could fly out, Sunday afternoon after church. But it was very important for him to be in his church with his family, and he modeled what he wanted us to do. So he was a godly man, still is a godly man. But that was a wonderful time singing with him. And we were called Friends, and we did a lot of a cappella. So we would open up the concert before he came out, and we would do some a cappella numbers, and then of course just smooth into being the backup singers for him. But that was such a great time. But yeah, he was known for all his duets with Sandy Patty. So we all know that. More Than Wonderful, and I've Just Seen Jesus, and he can just, I have nothing bad to say about that man. I loved every moment that I traveled with him.
Well, it sounds like that would have been just a truly amazing experience. And speaking of I've Just Seen Jesus, I was thinking for me, let's say I didn't come back into the Christian, because I took a little diversion after high school, to the church. Yeah. So for about maybe 12, 13 years or so. So when I came back, which would have been around 1989, that was a song that I recall that my pastor and someone from our church would do. And then I found out that Laurynell Harris and Sandy Patty were the ones that really made that song popular. But he, again, maybe we don't hear as much about him now, but he was an award-winning vocalist, right?
Grammys, Dove, Stellar. He won them all.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just great the way you're saying what he modeled before you all, in terms of, for him, it was important to be back at his home church on Sunday, and just really living out his Christian faith that way.
He really did. He really did. Has a great marriage, and he used to talk about it in the concerts when he did win the Grammy. He got up the next morning and his wife said, "You taking out the trash?" And he's like, "Taking out the trash? I just won a Grammy." And she goes, "Well, we still got trash, and you can take it out."
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess he learned, well, some things never change, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, so and how long were you with him?
I was with him for almost 2 years.
Okay.
And then it got a little expensive for churches to bring both of us in, because they'd have to pay, extra to have the backup singers. So we sort of just flew the coop, so to say. It was a great run, but then, it got a little too expensive. It was more cost effective for them to just fly him in and him use tracks,
Oh, right. Yeah, I can understand that. But you had mentioned too that you and the group Friends, I believe it was called Friends, would come out and sing a cappella. And I was thinking that's how you can tell when someone can really sing. If they can sing a cappella, I mean, they're good.
Yes. Yeah. And we had a great arranger. He did a lot of the Voices of Liberty at Disney. He arranges all their a cappella stuff, and so he would do ours. So it was very difficult stuff. And we had one of our girls, she had perfect pitch. So if one of us went off just a little bit, it drove her crazy. And we'd say, "Well, if you can hear us going off pitch, you need to go with us." And she'd say, "No, you need to stay on pitch." Stay with me.
Right.
Well, you know what? One of our concerts that we did with Laurynell was at Carnegie, Mellon Carnegie, right there in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
We did a night with Laurynell there.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Now, was this like the Carnegie Mellon University or? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That is great.
That was a memory. I forgot that we had done Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering too. So, apparently you're an excellent vocalist. Were you offered at some point your own recording contract, or did you at some point seek to go solo?
I did not. I mean, I've got 6, 7 recordings now, I think, but I'm just on the independent. I didn't go with a label because a lot of my friends said once you go with a label, they own you. So they tell you how to dress, they tell you what makeup to wear, they tell you how your hair should be done, they pick your songs. So I really didn't want that. And so what did happen was a lot of the churches that we would go into would come up afterwards, because we'd do our friends segment, and then he would give us time to do solo stuff. So we'd each have a couple solos or whatever that we'd sing. So a lot of the churches would say, if you ever go solo, call us and we'll have you back. And so for the first 3 years after I left Larnell, I toured and I drove everywhere in my little car, chucking it across the United States of America. But it was a blast. I would not take that back for the world. And, and now I'm back doing it again, not as full time as that. Now I fly everywhere, but I can pick and choose where I want to go and what church I want to, sing in. But God just continues to open up doors for us. And in fact, that's how I'm coming to you.
That's right. Yes. And like I said, I'm definitely excited about that. And so I wanted to touch base too on the fact that not only are you a pastor's daughter, but you are married to a pastor, right?
I am married to a pastor. I said I'd never marry a preacher too, but he's a pastor, but he was more into the music and drama. So he was that for many, many years. And just recently we planted a church. But before that, we did huge Broadway type productions in all the churches that we were in, and people would come from all over to see our productions. And that's was his forte of doing those. We do huge Easter productions, huge Christmas productions, 14, 15 performances every time. And so that's just the world that we live in. And it's not as prevalent anymore in churches. They've gone the whole worship around, not a lot of choirs anymore, but he was a great choir director. And but now, God has different seasons and we're in a different season. So, yeah.
Yeah, so true. So true. We do go through different seasons in our lives. And, it's important to know when the Lord is kind of switching up on you, or he wants you to say, okay, now we're going in a different direction. So
right. And make sure you listen to that voice too, because a lot of times he may want us to move to a different season, and and we say, no, I want to stay in this one. I like this one. Yeah. And he's trying to move us to another one, but we're holding on to that season so hard that, he's like, hey, but over here, I'm going to bless you in this season. So move with me. Listen to that voice, that still small voice. Sometimes, sometimes it's really loud, but sometimes that still small voice is the one we need to listen to.
Exactly. And I'm thinking when it gets really loud, that's because you haven't been paying attention. God has to really,
Right. You got to be in tune, baby, in tune.
Right. Yes. And so, Renee, with being, again, a pastor's wife, with this space that I've created here for the 30 Minutes With, it's kind of an extension of the PA Women of Chaplaincy and Pastoral Care that we women chaplains and clergy women, I would say, that we meet online once a month. And but I wanted to open it up to you, not only because, again, you are going to be the worship leader at the conference coming up, but I feel like as a pastor's wife, you probably deal a little bit with pastoral care. And I know even as far as speaking, I heard you speak at another women's conference. When did you start getting into speaking, or is that something you've done for a while too?
No, I did not get into it as much. I mean, I've always, when during my concerts, I exhort more. I called it in between my songs. I would exhort, talk about different things. But when we were in Michigan, we were at a church in Michigan, Brightmoor Christian Church, and one of the ladies, in fact, it was our women's ministries leader at the time. She said, "You know what? I think you should teach a Bible study." And I'm like, "Oh, no. I sing and I lead worship. I don't want to speak. I don't want to teach anything." And she's like, "But I think you'd be really good at it." So I said, "All right, well, it's going to have to be something that I really want to do, all right, that I can get into, So she says, "Well, I'll let you pick. You pick whatever study you want to do." And so I found a study called Bad Girls of the Bible. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of that.
All right. So they've got Bad Girls of the Bible. They've got Real Bad Girls of the Bible, and then I forget what the other one was. Slightly Bad Girls. I forget, but I did them all. And I really was able to get into that whole series, you know, and it was what you could learn from these bad girls of the Bible. And I mean, my classes, I had probably 75, 80 people in my class every week that would just commit to a 8-week study. And it was so much fun that I started to enjoy it. And so then they asked me to speak for a women's conference that we had. So I did that. And then they asked me to speak for a Wednesday night, you know, so different things like that. It just started snowballing. And not that I still don't feel called to be a pastor, you know, but I do, I like to speak every now and then, you know, it's fun. And especially if you give them a good subject. You know, if you give me a good subject and then I can go with it and have fun with it, because I do like to have fun and throw a little comedy in there. I think that speaks to people, you know, if they can laugh. So we had a great time during those studies. But yeah, pastor wife is a little bit like pastor daughter. It's a fishbowl, you know. They're watching you. And they're watching how you react, and they're watching how you are living out your walk. And I've always said, if I can't walk my talk, I'm done. You know, because there's so many people out there that don't walk their talk, and I don't want to be one of those people. I want people to look at me and say, I see Jesus in her. She may be going through something right now, but she's still letting the love of the Lord, the joy of the Lord shine through.
Yes. I'm thinking, I love that. You know, if I can't walk my talk, I'm done. That's wow. Yeah. Something we should all be mindful of is
because people are watching you, whether you think they are or not. They are watching you. And then, you know, I'm a town clerk by day, and they're all watching how I react to stuff, how I treat our residents, how I treat the other employees, because they know I'm a pastor's wife. They know I'm out there singing in churches. So they are watching how I react to situations. And I've got to let the love of Jesus. I mean, there's some days it's hard. Oh, Lord, you know, I'm like, oh, how am I going to deal with this person today? They are on my last nerve, you know, but you got to put that aside and say, you know, the old WWJD, what would Jesus do? What would he do in this situation? How would he react in this situation? You know, and try and think of that when you're going through something, instead of letting your mouth speak first. You know, think about it before you speak.
Yeah. And like you're saying, you know, anytime you're dealing with the public, it can be a challenge. You're going to run into those days where it will be a challenge. But I want to get back to how, you know, one of my early introductions of you in terms of, first of all, I came across you on CTV, Cornerstone Television, on, I'm not even sure where I forget the name of the program now, but they feature, you know, a musical artist or musical guest on this program. So I was flipping through and came across you, and I'm like, oh, who is this? You know, and I don't know if you were singing a little bit of Stan, the Donnie McClurkin song.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Or that might have been, you might have finished up one song and you were going into that. And I'm like, I've got to find out who that is, because at the time I was still looking for a worship leader for the conference. Okay. And then when I saw your name, then of course I had to go to Google and see what I can find.
Right.
So then I find this article about you being the Hump Day hymn lady. And how did that come about with that Hump Day hymn lady? I mean, I know what I read, but I want you to share about that.
Well, my little church that we had started, we were all sitting around the table one night, and one of my older saints, she said, Renee, sing Because He Lives. And so I started singing it. They were all singing it with me. And my 16-year-old son at the time was sitting across from me, and he just staring at me. And I'm giving him that mama look, like, you sang, boy. And so afterwards he says, Mama, I didn't know it. And I go, what? You didn't know Because He Lives? And I said, I have not raised you right. You don't even know the hymns of the church, you know? So, and then I started thinking, do our young people know the hymns of the church? Do older people know the hymns of the church? And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go on once a week on social media and sing just a cappella unplugged, unrehearsed, and just sing a hymn. Pick one out of the hymnal every week. And I thought, when could I do it? And I thought, oh, I'll do it on Wednesdays. And then I said, oh, it's hump day. And so then I started, I'm going to do a hump day hymn. And so then I started doing the hump day hymn, and I started a little jingle, wrote myself a jingle as I'd come on and say, it's hump day hymn time, hump day hymn time. Well, a friend of mine happened to be in Pittsburgh. They have an autistic son. And she said every time he would hear my jingle on a Wednesday, he'd run in the room and go, it's the hump day hymn lady, the hump day hymn lady. And I said, oh, can I take that and run with it? And she goes, absolutely. So that is how I became the hump day hymn lady. And I do it. I'm still doing it. It's been 4 years now. I never thought I would. I thought it was just going to be maybe a year, but there's a lot of hymnals out there and a lot of hymns. So as long as I've got a following, and I do, and people are watching, I got people calling me and saying, or private message me or text me, and I watch this with my kids, or I watch you every week with my grandkids. I've got my clerks that aren't even like Christians that say, we look for it every week because we want to hear you. And it touches us because they don't know, something about you and something about these songs. They just minister to us, and I'm like, well, that's, as long as I get that feedback, I will continue to do it.
Yes. That's excellent. That's excellent. I love that story. Wow. Well, listen, we're getting close to our 30-minute time here, but I just wondered, I meant to ask you earlier, do you feel you might want to do a little portion of a hymn before we close out?
I sure can. You had told me you wanted me to sing "'Tis So Sweet," so how about I do that one?
Yes, if you don't mind. Yeah.
All right. 'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus, just to take him at his word, just to rest upon his promise, just to know thus saith the Lord. Jesus, how I trust him, how I proved him more and more. Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for his sweet grace, I'm gonna trust him more.
Beautiful. Yes.
Thank you. We have to trust him, right?
Yes. Amen. Yes. Well, listen, Renee Rowan Basel, thank you so much for spending this 30 minutes with us. For everyone watching, well, especially if you are a woman in chaplaincy, pastoral care, some sort of ministry, a clergy woman, please consider coming to our 3rd annual Women of Chaplaincy and Pastoral Care Conference. Renee will be there. I will be there to greet you. And I'm just expecting it to be an exciting and wonderful time. So again, Renee, thanks so much. Thank you all for watching. And, may the Lord be with you. And I pray his hand of protection be upon you to keep you from all hurt, harm, and danger, both seen and unseen. And may you be well so that you can be here to see who will be joining me on 30 Minutes With. All right. God bless you.